Hello, YouTube. This is an alcohol review of Bushmills Black Bush Irish whiskey. Fairly certain I haven't reviewed this one. I've done white, done red, I don't recall black. I've checked their website. They have multiple colors, green and blue and other things. But I was asked one time about what the difference was between the red and the white. I believe it was the Bushmills I was asked on. I did not know at the time. I tried to be funny. Needless to say, it wasn't funny. With my little answer, it sounded more of a smartassy, which is sadly more me. Trying not to be a smartass. But the different varieties of why each one is each color is actually written on the label. In this case, Bushmills White is the original. Red, I forget what exactly is up with the red, but the black is a sherry cask reserve. Take the reserve as you will. I'm sure there's not a sherry cask for the rest of us, and then reserve is for their, special friends or anything. It's just more along the lines of they're just adding an extra word to it all. But it's sherry cask. So obviously, they take a sherry that, whether theirs, which I doubt, it's more along the lines of they simply buy them off of a sherry company and either take the sherry cask, chop them up, and throw them in the cask with the Bushmills that they're using, or, and what it implies is that they're taking the sherry cask, taking the ones that leak the least, because remember, these are old casks, and refilling them with their Bushmills and using that to get the flavor. And you put the pieces of wood into it or put it in the cask itself to draw out the flavor of one. It's going to be charred on the inside because that's how you get some of the stop the cask from leaking, is that you char them. You get the remnants char from the sherry and the taste of the sherry because it has embedded itself into the wood itself. Now, for me, sherry gives it a cherry note to it. And of late, there's been a lot of sherry cask this, sherry cask that, with rums and things like that. I have a bottle sit to the side of a short run from who was it? Captain Morgan? Captain Morgan, it might be? Who did a sherry cask. And what you end up getting is their spice rum with cherry highlights. And usually, cherry, to me, being a child of the 80s, is very much so cough syrup, like cough medicine. If you're a child of the 80s and you've grown up in the Empire, you know what I'm talking about. Cough syrup came in 3 flavors: orange, cherry, and medicinal hell. So what you get is orange flavored medicinal hell, cherry flavored medicinal hell, or just medicinal hell. And luckily, I believe things have changed since then. But on to the review. Bushmills Black Irish Whiskey, triple distilled finest blend. Apparently this is a common trait. They triple distill all or most of their things. What they do is, in case you're wondering what they mean by triple distilled, is that you've got this a tower thing, and what they do is that they heat it up into the bottom of it, and as a very nice truck with no muffler drives by. Sheesh. Serves me right for being out here in the sticks. Anyways, so what happens is that as it, I want to say boil, but it looks like it's boiling. And the thing is that the lighter the fluid, it will actually boil up to the next chamber above. And the bits and bobs and contaminants stay behind because they're too heavy. Then it goes into that layer. It continues this boiling or gurgling, and there's like it's almost like a grate to the next layer, and that grate it goes through. The contaminants are too big or too heavy, they stay behind, and then you get right. I believe a one run through that tower is distilled, and then they do it two more times, making it a triple distilled. I'm fairly certain is not three layers in this thing, and each one would be distilling, because I'm pretty sure, from all that I've seen, distilling you just can't go through that one process and get all the contaminants out. It's got to go through this entire tower, and the tower is I've seen it as tall as 10 foot, but only a diameter about yo big or so in some of these things. Beautiful copper contraptions. It's just one of those devices where you look at it, and if you didn't know what it was, you'd be just spellbound trying to figure out what possible use this thing is. And then the tube on the top, and out it goes and fills up whatever it is, and off it runs. Being checked with the heart and all that silliness. Well, I should call it silliness. One part will blind you. Anyways, so Bushmills Black Bush Irish whiskey, triple distilled. If I haven't bored you or steered you wrong with that information, call me lucky. Sherry cask, reserve. I said reserve, whatever that means. Oh, from Old Bushmills Distillery, world's oldest. The bottle itself has 1608 imbued on it. Imbued, engraved, impressioned. 1608. It's on the bottle. That is supposed to be the year that they got their license to manufacture. Licensed. Please understand they were making whiskeys before you could buy the license for it. So this isn't the first Irish whiskey, it's the first licensed one out there. According to the back here, granted it's a license to distill in 1608. I got something right. Bushmills is the oldest licensed whiskey distillery in the world, known as Black Bush by generations of Bushmill locals. Iconic Irish whiskey is aged in hand-selected sherry casks, making exceptionally rich, complex whiskey signature smooth. So, obviously not pieces, but in the full cask themselves. The reason why I say pieces is that if you're a home brewer and you want to get that cask flavor in, you take chunks of cask, throw it in, let it roll around there for about, I think, 2 weeks is the top before it imbues all of its flavors. Pull it out, and there you go. Look at that. It was aged in the cask. Who's going to know besides you? It is a cap with their stuff on it. You can see that. And the cork is pieces that have been glued together. Why is this important? A long time ago, there was a blight on cork, making it very expensive. So various ways of trying to figure out to cork their bottles without exactly using cork, yet still remaining cost effective. And one is this, taking pieces of cork and gluing them together. This guy. Some went onto plastics, some went onto different styles of rubbers. Some just kept it expensive and still using the cork itself. I believe the blight's long over, but the ramifications still go on. Alrighty. Bam. It is a lot. Look at the bottle. It's a lot. Well, maybe not on your end. On my end, the bottle looks darker than in the Glencairn. Alright, let's give her a swirl. Swirl, 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 swirl. So you have to swirl this many times? Not really, this is kind of fun. Why do we do the swirl? Well, lots of reasons. The two main ones is to get the stuff, get the whiskey up the side of the glass. And we do that for two reasons. When we stop, you get that what looks like crags coming down. Those are known as tears or legs, depending on who you talk to. And, well, that's, I can't see very much that way. There we go. And the more tears and the more legs and the faster, it shows that it's less sugar in solution. Sugar in solution, you say? It's whiskey, it has sugar? Yeah, for it to start off, there needs to be sugars for the yeast. Once it goes through a fermentation, hey, it's distilled. Once it goes through its fermentation, then it goes through its distilling process. But it needs to go through a fermentation. Fermentation needs sugar. This would be either added sugar, like you find in some rums, and oddly, Japanese whiskeys. Learned that recently. And just like I say, it adds as to the taste as well as to the flavor, but also gives it a thicker mouth feel. Think syrup. And the more you swirl it, the faster it runs down the sides, the less it implies less sugar, which means it implies a lighter mouthfeel and not as sweet as if there was sugar still in solution. So this runs down pretty quick. So it's implying a nice light mouthfeel, but not very sweet. I've come across many where you swear by the way it swirls that it's going to be, chocolate or cake inside, say chocolate cake inside, and be dry as a bone. So take it as more of a hint than a rule of what you're seeing. The next thing is that you swirl it, it brings up the side as it runs down. It creates much more surface area because now it's up on the side coming down for surface to air contact. When that happens, alcohol evaporates at such a lower temperature that it starts to come up quicker. So it's not like you have to heat it up for it to come up at room temperature is much more than what it needs. So it starts to come up and it takes up all the oils and scents and everything up with it. Because it's a Glencairn, you see it kind of coats, smooths in. And this is a full Glencairn glass. See, it's at the middle part of his belly, giving you maximum surface to air contact. It funnels it together, making it easier for a nose, even as it busts up his mind, to be able to smell something. So you want even more swirl, swirl, swirl. As it runs down, it's in contact with the air. You get a brief window of even more smell up the schnoz just by looking cool and swirling. Ooh, fruity paint thinner. Fruity with cinnamon and vanilla paint thinner. Okay, yeah, it's that alcohol, obviously, that ethanol coming through, giving it that paint thinner burn right off the bat. Talk about curling the nose hairs. Now, I've been asked before about giving dollar values. I'm a little reluctant to because I leave my videos up till, well, YouTube wants to tear them down. So this could be up for around 5 or 10 years, and I'm pretty sure the prices will change. But at the point of taping, this is running somewhere between 20 and 30 American dollars. And by the way the economy is doing at this particular time, it could be $40, $50 tomorrow. I know it sounds like an exaggeration, but I don't think so. Very fruity, vanilla. Cinnamon's gone. The burn is pretty much out because you have to breathe a little bit. It's a nice nose, and it gets lighter and lighter and lighter as it breathes. All right. She bites. She burns. As expected. The initial nose hair, right there, right up front, does not disappoint. It's got a fairly light mouthfeel. There's no sweetness to it, so the sight of doing a swirl is dead on, for once. But it's heavy. That sherry cask gives it a creaminess to it, a creamy, which my wife picked up quick and early. I picked up a bit of a cherry note to it, but then again, I'm expecting it, so I'm not sure whether I convinced myself that it has cherry notes or whether it actually does have cherry notes. That's one of the problems with expecting and actually tasting, and then the crisscross of the two. But she believes it has a cream base to it. I taste a bit of a cream base into it, not near as much as she can. And like I said, I get little cherry highlights out of it. The rest of it is a nice, regular whiskey that you find out there that's Irish. And Irish whiskeys, in my opinion, are very nice whiskeys. They're great for summer. At this particular point in time, it is hot as whichever plane of hell you want to talk about. And thus, a nice whiskey like this goes well, except it's a little, because of that sherryness to it, makes it a little heavy. So it's a little too much for a hot, broiling summer like we have right now at the time of the taping of this video. Now, late summer, fall, this would be wonderful. Spring, I'm not too sure about, but definitely fall, definitely early winter, or if it's a warm winter, would go well with that. But to my disappointment, as for summertime, we want something really light on the palate that rolls off really quick. I would assume without that sherry castness to it, it would be great for summer. It would just roll right on off, and you're banging for another sip, and it's a great way to have a hot summer night. But because of that sherry, it adds that cream base to it, adds a hint of cherry, which is a bit of a down note. I believe that makes it a little too much for, right now, a hot summer afternoon. Give it a try. See what you think. This is Bushmills Black Bush Sherry Cask Reserve. Any comments about this particular product down below be warmly accepted, as always. Or better yet, go out, buy it, and try it yourself. And go and put a review on the YouTube Spirits community and let the rest of us know your thoughts on Bushmills Black Bush Sherry Cask Reserve. See whether it's worth purchasing or not. In the meantime, in the heat of the summer, keep on drinking.